Good afternoon, or good noon. Oh, it's before noon. It's actually 11 o'clock, okay. So for those who are listening, afternoon, it's good afternoon. For those over here, it's good late morning. We are about to begin this week's Parsha in My Life class. For whatever reason, I didn't give it last night. And I guess it's meant to be today in the morning. I'm a little more flexible since we're doing it remote without people being here. Hopefully we should start having the crowds back at Maayon very soon. I mean, restaurants are opening up. Restaurants for the soul can definitely open up. So maybe in the near future, very near future. Today's shir was sponsored by Mrs. Bela Greenbaum. And this is in honor of her husband, Yaakov ben Rabbi Yaakov ben Reb Shmuel Yosef, Rabbi Yaakov Greenbaum, dear friend of mine and huge supporter of Maayon Yisroel. May this be for a big schus for his great neshama. Passed away just a few months ago. And this week is the parsha Ropshetz Chassidic of lifting up souls, as we're going to discuss. So may this be a big aliyas neshama for him. And may he look out for his beautiful, special family, bring a lot of bracha for them. I would like to dedicate tonight's shir, or today's shir, to a dear friend of mine who passed away from COVID-19 this Shabbos afternoon at 4:45 p.m. My dear friend Rabbi Avram Plotkin, who davened over here, who listened to these classes, to Maayon classes, who drank the words of Torah with a thirst that very few people have. Call him a friend, I'll call him a mentor too. He mentored me by just looking at him. Every time I looked at him, I was just full of, he ignited enthusiasm, excitement. He was a yid full of light, a person whose neshama was not blocked by his body. Interesting, it's going to be the theme of today's talk about, despite the fact that we have a body and the body obscures the soul, the work is to ignite the soul. Rabbi Avram didn't need that. His soul was ablaze. So light, so agile, so zrizos, if anything you can say, so swift. Light, like it says in Pirkei Avos, kal kanesher, light like an eagle. To do the will of your Father in heaven. Rarely do you get to see a person who you can just witness a soul. The soul is so conspicuous and so real and so present. Always, never a time. Happy, full of life, full of energy. Just an amazing, beautiful, so there to help every person, so sensitive, so caring, such a delightful person to be around. I'm going to miss him so dearly. I just went to the Shiva yesterday. And also, last week we spoke about his son's marriage. Mendel just got married. He was sick. He was on a ventilator for over 10 weeks and waited it out for his youngest son's wedding, which he couldn't participate physically, but I think they had some kind of a Zoom. I don't know if he was conscious, and I don't think so, but I'm sure he was participating with his son's wedding, which was last Wednesday. It's still in the middle of the Sheva Bracha, so it's like it says in Tanya, the Alter Rebbe described what it says in the Zohar, that sometimes there's bechiyat kiya b'liboy mesitra da, v'chedvat kiya b'liboy mesitra da, that a person can have two opposite emotions at the same time. On the one hand, the heart is crying because of the love of this, because of the loss of this incredible, beautiful Jew. On the other hand, one is full of joy. That thank God he was able to be here and for the wedding of his son. And Hashem should continue that there should only be from now on simchas in the family, only happy occasions, only great things, only joy, only happiness. And may he return here very quickly. You know, Sunday morning, I had received the news about this tragic passing on after the Shabbos, on Matzah Shabbos. Sunday morning was the funeral, but before I went to the funeral, the funeral was at noon, I learned a discourse about lighting the menorah. And his name, or I don't know if I mentioned his name yet, Rabbi Avram, this should be Zoschus Your Neshama. Avram Aaron ben Yitzchak. We were used to saying your name all the time for davening, Avram Aaron ben Yenta. We gave a few classes over here, I mentioned him, the Refuah Shalema, but now after his passing, we go after the father's name. Avram Aaron ben Yitzchak. So when I learned the discourse about lighting the lamps, which means raising the souls, as I mentioned earlier, Avram Aaron, the discourse discussed, the whole lighting of the menorah is done by Aaron HaKohen. And what does it mean to light the menorah? Which means to ignite souls with love. With love. That souls should love God, be driven spiritually, and love each other, and love whatever is good in the world, to ignite a passion. So the question is, Avram Avinu represents passion, fire. And the discourse discusses that both Avram Avinu, our father Abraham, and Aaron HaKohen, Aaron the high priest, both of them represent love. Energize their souls, super souls that energize our souls and ignite the love. But it discusses the difference. Avram's love is of a lower level, more of a meditative love, and Aaron's love is a more spiritual love, a higher kind of a love. And it was, again, so his name is Avram Aaron, and his funeral, and literally he passed away Shabbos afternoon. When we read already, we begin, in a sense, Parshas Bahaloscha started already, because Shabbos afternoon by Mincha we read already the next Parsha. And it's Avram and Aaron, that's the whole content of Bahaloscha Sanero. So special souls leave the world in special times that are fitting to who they are. He's a real tzaddik. There's no doubt in my mind that he's one of these unique individuals that you don't find too many of them, and it's a big loss. So may Hashem just bring a lot of bracha, and he should be reunited with us very soon. I believe that the departure is only very temporary now. It's coming back, Be'ezus Hashem. Okay, that has been said. Oh, I do want to mention this. This is a cute thing. I went to the Shiva yesterday, so the family told me that to keep him engaged when he was, he's been in a respirator, as we said, 10 weeks already in the hospital, and he was in a coma state. But to keep him kind of attached here, because the one thing the family knew, that the one thing he loves is Torah. So he always would listen. He had a podcast list, and so he would listen to Torah all the time. Rabbi Avram was an engraver, and it fits who he is, because Chassidus talks about that the deepest level of connection to God is like the letters that are engraved, like on the luchos, on the tablets, that are engraved letters. Engraved letters means that the letter and the thing that it is engraved is totally one, not like written letters. Written letters, the ink and the parchment are two entities attached to each other. So someone can be attached to spiritual matters, to Hashem, to godliness, in a way, at least on a conscious level, where they and the thing are two things. They and the Torah, they and the mitzvahs are two things. But then you, from time to time, meet an individual who he and the Torah are one, he and mitzvahs are one, he and Judaism are one, he and Hashem are one. And that's Avram. He's an engraver. He didn't work with letters that are written. He worked with letters, engraved letters. So he was inseparable. So even during his last 10 weeks, when he wasn't mentally here, in a way that we can see his cognition being over here in his body, so they were playing for him in the hospital, and they told the nurses, they gave him an iPad, and they had non-stop classes. So the nurses would tell him all the time that we're listening to your preacher, and they know that was mostly my classes. So I feel privileged that Rabbi Avram spent his last 10 weeks shining light in this world through the classes over here at Maayon. So we miss you, Avram, and I know you're here still in spirit, and you're for sure here, and you're connected, and we'll never forget you. And Be'ezus Hashem will be dancing, only like you knew how to dance, with such inner joy and happiness, and the third Beis Hamikdash, outside, inside, with the rebbe, with Mashiach, with the whole thing. Be'ezus Hashem, B'karav Mamish. Okay, let's actually learn. So, even though that too is learning. So the parsha begins with the mitzvah of igniting the lamps. So it says like this: Daber ala Aaron, speak to Aaron, the high priest, v'mar te'elav, and say to him, Ba'loisches haneros, when you will light the lamps, amul pnei hamenorah, to the middle of the menorah, ya'iru shivas haneros. So the 7 lamps should shine towards the middle. Simply that means, the simple meaning is in the Beis Hamikdash, in the temple, at that time the tabernacle, which was the pre-temple, they would light the menorah every day. So when he lit the menorah, he was told that he should light the menorah, that the menorah was a 7-branch candelabra, right? So it had the center, which is the one, and then 3 branches extending on each side. So you light the menorah, make sure that the lamps are pointing towards the center. The question over here is, if that's the case, it should say that towards the middle, Pnei menorah is the middle, the center. So towards the middle flame should burn the 6 lamps. The 3 on the right side, 3 on the left side should be tilted towards the middle, that the lamp should be tilted a little bit, these this way and the others the other way, so that they're shining towards the middle. So it's only 6, not 7. How come it says, 7 neros? So in Chassidus, in a discourse from the lubavitcher rebbe from the year 74, Tafshin Lamed Daled. That's when I'm going to be doing a synopsis on a phenomenal discourse. Every discourse is phenomenal. If you learn it, and you break it, and you allow the light to shine, the Maimorim are filled with the godly light. So sometimes you read very superficially, you don't really see it, but when you read it once, twice, you get into it, you see the incredible light. The light of Pnimius HaTorah, of the essence of the Torah, of the inner dimension of the Torah. So he asks that question, why does it say that? And he explains, based on a discourse from his father-in-law. And he brings from the previous Rebbe, Rabbi Yosef Yitzchak. And you have to understand that these are the tzaddikim, the rabbeim, the rebbes. These are the master souls. These are the high priests. Their work is kindling the lamps. The lamps are the souls. That's what they do. So he explains the verse as follows. He says that when it mentions twice lamps in this pasuk, it's not talking about the same lamps. When you light the lamps, is referring to the menorah down here, which on a deeper level is referring to the Jewish souls, the Jewish neshamas, the souls of the Jewish people. They're called Ner Hashem Nishmas Adam. Neshamas are called lamps. So when you will light the lamps means when you will ignite a soul. Now, then when it says in the end, to the center of the menorah should shine the 7 lamps, are referring to the luminaries in the sky. There is the sun, there is the moon. And even though in the story of creation it says that Hashem made Shnei HaMa'oros HaGedolim, Hashem made two of the great luminaries, the sun and the moon. But more in detail, there are 7 luminaries. What they mean exactly by 7, it means 7 planets, but then the sun is not part of that. What exactly it means and how they count more than 7 planets, I'm not exactly sure. But that's irrelevant. There is mystically and spiritually, and I'm sure it reflects in the physical sense as well, that according to Torah, there are 7 luminaries. And what it's saying is like this: when souls are ignited down here on earth, which means when we are connecting to God, when we are worshiping Hashem, when we're connecting to Hashem, because we're turned on towards spirituality, which is the job of the tzaddik, which is the job of the kohen, which is the job of the high priest or the kohen or whatever, when he ignites the souls, and then therefore we're turning towards Hashem, and as a result of that we're more active in Torah, mitzvahs, and so on and so forth, what that causes is it brings God's light down to the world, and that Hashem imbues the 7 luminaries in the sky, that they are shining with a much greater light than ordinary they would shine. Literally, that means that the world becomes brighter. That's what it means. Now, we're living in a time right now when the world needs brightness. The world was a little dark. People are feeling kind of melancholy. People are down. It's been a tough time. Last couple of months has been really, really tough. We've been through some major dramatic events that the world doesn't see. We've been a few events that are like a once in a century type of a thing, and they're all coming concentrated. As I mentioned, that it's not a chiddush to me, because this is a year of transition. This is the year when we're going from the 7 to the 8 to the supernatural. I'm waiting for the good light. I'm waiting for the good. But without a shadow of a doubt, that all this chaos and all this craziness, which we might look at as a suspension of the previous world, is because the world is now preparing itself. It's an introduction to the new world. As it says, we spoke about this in the other classes, Shemayim HaChadashim B'Sa'aretz HaChadasha, the new heaven and the new earth that Hashem is preparing, that's growing under as the outer world is decomposing. It's like skin sometimes that's not healthy, and fresh skin is coming from below. The outer skin on the top, peels off. The outer crust of the old world is peeling, and the new world is coming out. So the world is right now, it needs healing, and it is healing, definitely. This is all messianic, whatever is happening. And so part of that is that the world will have a fresh new light. It'll be a brighter world when Mashiach comes. And that's what it means, and maybe physically brighter as well, as the 7 luminaries in the sky will have a brighter light. And how is that accomplished? By us turning on our own lights. We all have light. Our souls have a capacity of such light. We're all lamps. Every Jew is a lamp. Every human being is a lamp. And when we turn on these lamps and we shine our godly light, our deeper human light, through acts of goodness and kindness, and through positive thinking and good thoughts, and all of this brings from above a great new light to the world, and it illuminates the 7 lamps, 7 luminaries. So that would mean, that's why it says it should shine towards the menorah down here, which means towards our human efforts from below, our seeking our relationship with God, our intensity of our menorah, of our light, of our fervor, of our excitement for goodness and for holiness. That causes a reciprocation from above, that all 7 lamps, that's why it says 7, not 6, because if it would be referring to the menorah towards the center, it would be saying 6. But it's referring to the Shivas Haneros, the 7 luminaries from above, will shine towards the work of our igniting of the lamp. Now, what does it mean when we say Balosches Haneros, we have to ignite the lamps? That is the job of Aaron, the high priest, of the tzaddik, of the great mentors and teachers of the Jewish people, to ignite souls. What does that mean? So, every soul, Ner Hashem Nishmas Adam, it says in Proverbs, in Mishlei, that Ner Hashem, that the soul is a lamp of God. Why is a soul compared to a lamp? So when we look at a flame, and this is discussed in Tanya chapter 19, when we look at a flame, we see that the flame is always in upward motion. Flame is constantly rising upward. And why is a flame rising upward? So mystically, it's related to the idea that the root and the source of fire is outside of the atmosphere, above. And the fire is seeking, every individual flame has been captured, some of that, what we might call more transcendental fiery energy that's outside of the atmosphere, has been plucked and pulled down and held down by the wick, the substance that's holding it, by the lamp. So now the fire wants to return back to its source. So it's gravitating towards its source where it comes from. And that's why it symbolizes a soul, because a soul naturally, it's not something that has to be introduced into the soul. It's not something that we need to develop. It's not something that we need to create. It's just a natural, instinctive state of the soul, like it says in Keheles, also from King Solomon, another book of King Solomon. So it says over there, Ruach ha'adam ha'oilahu l'mayla, the spirit of man is rising upward. Ruach ha'behema, the spirit of an animal, yeredes lamata, is going down. An animal is going downward, doesn't have that spiritual quest. The human soul, the godly soul, being that it's a piece of God from above, is constantly in upward motion. And that's why neshama is called a lamp. But if a soul is called a lamb because of its natural gravitation towards heaven, towards Hashem, the constant fervor that we constantly, in other words, it doesn't happen. We're not satisfied just with materialism. A person is alive in this world, eating, drinking, having good food, having good other physical pleasures and delights. It doesn't do it for us. That doesn't cut it. We're not satisfied with it. We're always looking for something more. And what are we looking for? We want spirituality. We want to pray. We want to be inspired. We want to connect. We want each other's company so that we can rise up to a higher place. So if we have that automatically, so why do we need to have a high priest that will ignite the souls? So therefore it is explained that there are two types of souls. There are souls who come down from heaven, from their purest, godliest state, and they remain and they retain their spiritual status, the spiritual stature. The soul doesn't change. That means notwithstanding the fact that they're cloaked in a physical body, the physical garments do not taint the soul. They don't dry the soul out or stifle its fire. And even this person is still ablaze. As I mentioned earlier about my dear friend who I'm giving the class today, he's a person that his fire was burning, and you can see it, the quest, the thirst, the excitement that he had every time he walked in the door over here to learn over here Chassidus was this palpable. You can touch it. You can literally feel like if you touch him, you'll get burnt from the burn of the soul. That's how alive he was spiritually. People that way. So especially there are great tzaddikim. That these great tzaddikim, these are souls who naturally are this way. They don't need any outside help. Even when they come down in this body, they have that fire. Like Rabbi Yitzchak Berdichev was a soul on fire. Like Rabbi Shneur Zalman of Liadi, the Alter Rebbe, when he prayed, he was on fire. You can see Rabbi Akiva, they would start davening Shemona Esrei on one side of the room, and he would end up on the other side. Literally, it was a rapture. He would just order. So these are souls. They don't change when they come down over here. The physical material world doesn't obscure. They have zero interest in any physical pleasure, in as much as it's detached from God. That's not reflecting anything godly. And all their obsession is just with Hashem. That's what it is. And that's why they spend all their life pursuing Torah and mitzvahs as if that's their only interest. There's nothing else that is there. Those are these souls. They are called, Chassidic, in Kabbalistic terminology, they are called souls of Atzilus. Souls of Atzilus means they're from the world of emanation, and they remain in that state. The world of divine emanation. They are nothing other than emanations of Hashem. That's why they can retain the godliness even when they come down. Then there is most other souls. Most other souls are called neshamas of Biyah. Biyah means three lower worlds. Bria, Yetzirah, and Asiya. Bria is creation, Yetzirah, formation. Asiya is the world of completion. And these are souls that even though all souls originate in in the realms of Atzilus, which means in the world of emanation, a world that is perfectly one with God. All souls originate there, but souls, once they're created, once they are developed to be a soul, they take on a certain created state of existence, which is they feel themselves already something other than Hashem. And once they become detached, they become creations, then their light, their original light, as we said before, being a lamp, being one with Hashem, and therefore constantly gravitating to go back to their source, is kind of covered up. And that, of course, there's endless gradations of levels of how thickened and coarsened their consciousness becomes as they become more self-aware and less aware of Hashem. And they become more of an entity. So you become more of an entity. And then when these souls go into bodies, then they become very physical, material aware. And then their passions and quests and interests become materialistic. These souls, however, inherently are still deep inside, they still have that spark. There's no such a thing as a soul that doesn't have a spark, because its soul originates as a piece of God from above. And that's inextinguishable, but it is coverable. It could be obscured. So these souls need a reminder. They need to come into contact with one of these great souls, whose souls never departed from that spiritual state. And these neshamas then, as a result of that, need to have a reminder. And their reminder is just by coming into contact with these super blaze neshamas, souls that are in this great godly state, and just the encounter ignites their souls. It just awakens up. Like we know how many people, they go to a big rebbe, they go to a big tzaddik, and it's life-changing. Literally, the direction of their life changes. Just an encounter. Just 3 words. The rebbe, how many people stood online on Sunday by the lubavitcher rebbe and just meeting him for receiving $1, and it had a transformative effect on them. You come to one of these soul kindlers, those who can ignite a soul. So yesterday I saw something nice. Someone was sending around a video from Rabbi Shea's Taub. Really fantastic. So he has daily videos. I saw yesterday one of his videos, which was really special. Just illustrated this. He held in his hand 2 lighters, and one of them he just, struck it down, and the flame, and it went up, and then the other one he kept on striking it, and there was no flame. And he says, take a look. This one is working. This one isn't working. It's a broken lighter, but it's not a broken lighter. All it is, it was out in the water. It was out in the rain, so it's wet. So that wasn't working. So then what he did was he took the lighter, the one that's burning, and he put it right to the other one, and suddenly, bang, the lighter is working. It's blowing, because it really is a lighter. It has it all. It just needed a little help. It needed a little encouragement. And that's the meaning of Balois Chasaneros. Those people whose souls are burning, their fire is alive, have to tilt themselves, their light of their soul, to the soul that is not yet burning. Every single person has got that potential, that godly potential. You just got to bend yourself over a little bit, or the person who has that light. And if you're inspired because you're learning this class, that means you have that light, or else you wouldn't be. There's many other things to watch on YouTube other than this class. So if you're watching, it means because you have a fire burning in you. So now you can take that fire and share it with someone else, ignite another soul. Either by sharing this class or by sharing a good word, whatever it is, igniting a soul. And when we ignite these souls, that's the meaning of Balois Chasanero, is to light up the lamps. That they should burn, that means they too should have a desire for a more transcendental life, for something deeper and higher, and should want to illuminate the world with a godly light. That's the idea. Now, the question, however, over here is, which is a good question. Why is it that when it mentions in the beginning, so what we have over here in the explanation of the verse is that when the verse mentions 2 type lamps twice, the first time it mentions lamps, it's talking about souls being ignited. And, oh, by the way, I just wanted to say, when we had a temple and we had a super soul like the high priest, the Kohen Gadol, one of his main tasks in the temple worship, in the service of the temple, is he would walk in every afternoon and he would go to the menorah. According to Maimonides, he would actually light the menorah also in the morning, but according to most opinions, only in the afternoon, as it's getting. And he would go to the menorah, which the menorah is the 7-branch candelabra, which represents the souls of Israel. And when he would physically light the menorah, it would have simultaneously a spiritual effect. He would ignite remote control. Today's days we have, people can actually enter people can do. Today we have, first of all, energy healing, that people can heal someone else from a distance. They literally can enter into your soul and pluck around and do certain repairs. In technology, for sure, we see that through there's Team Viewer, in which someone else that can be on the other side of the world can actually creep right into your computer through it, right, and go in there as if they're inside the computer, as if you were on your keypad. It's sometimes frightening to watch. So the Kohen, this technology in Judaism, in the spiritual realms, this technology was available thousands of years ago. The high priest would literally go walk to reach every single Jew across the planet, and he would light the menorah. He would light up the Jew, that the Jew would suddenly feel, hey, it's mincha, I have to daven mincha. And when the Jew would daven mincha, he wouldn't just go chaplop daven mincha. It was afternoon. He would start davening, and suddenly he would feel powerful. He would say, Ashrei Yoshrei Beisecha Yelucha Sela. Every day I will bless you, God. And suddenly he felt that I want to bless Hashem, and Gadol Hashem, God is great. And he would feel the desire to reach, to touch, to connect to Hashem, because the high priest gave him a turn on towards spirituality, towards Hashem, as a result of igniting the souls. It's one of the things we're lacking when we don't have a temple. We don't have the physical enactment of this. Hopefully the Beis HaMikdash will be rebuilt soon, and we'll have again this avodah. But in any case, the question over here is, how come in the beginning it says, when you will ignite the lamps, and then it says, later it says, to the inner, to the center of the menorah should burn all 7. Now, 7 we said because there are seven luminaries in the sky, so it's referring to the luminaries above. The first time it says Neiros, it doesn't say 7. It says when you will light the lamps. Now we said before, the reason is because it's not referring to the menorah necessarily. It's referring to all the Jewish people. But remember, so it's not only 7. But in truth, even when we're giving a more mystical interpretation, we can't take it out of the simple meaning. The simple meaning, when it says Balois Chesam Neiros, when you will light the lamps, it's referring to the light of the menorah. And in truth, it's not two separate pirushim, two separate explanations, which not related to each other. Is on the simple level, it's talking about lighting a physical menorah. Spiritually, it's talking about igniting souls. It's 2 dimensions of the same thing, and that's because the souls are a menorah. Because just like the menorah was made out of 7. Was a candelabra, so 2 souls are many souls. It's a candelabra. A lamp is individual lamp. A candelabra is where you have many lamps. So a soul is 1 lamp. You have many souls together. It's a candelabra. And one of the things about the menorah is that it had to be hammered out of one piece. The menorah was the one vessel in the temple that the entire thing, that and the kruvim, the cherubs, and the cover of the aron, the kaporas, had to be out of one piece. Other than that, I think everything else was allowed to be attached. But this had to be one piece. Menorah had to be from one. Also, the corners of the mizbeach also had to be that way. But generally, this was one piece. What's the emphasis of it? Because all souls originate as one soul. It's only later we become differentiated. Now, why does this menorah have 7? Why does the menorah have 7 branches? So the Alter Rebbe says, Shneur Zalman of Liadi, and he explains that even though every soul is different and every soul is unique in its unique way of serving God, in general we're divided into 7 categories. There are souls who serve Hashem primarily through love, called chesed. There are souls who serve Hashem primarily through awe and fear, called gevura, or as the way the Alter Rebbe says it, he says they have a different type of a love. It's more of a fiery love, as opposed to the first, those who serve Hashem out of chesed, which is more calm type of a love. Others more fiery love. Others serve Hashem more through Torah study or through compassion. Various different ways of serving Hashem related to the 7 midot, 7 emotions. And that's why the menorah is really the candelabra of the souls, the 7 general pathways through which souls serve Hashem, different types of souls. If that's the case, so then it needs explanation. How come in the beginning of the pasuk, when it says Ba'aloischa saneros, when you will light the lamps, it doesn't say Ba'aloischa eshiva saneros, when you will light the 7 lamps. In the end of the pasuk, when it's speaking about the luminaries in the sky, it mentions 7 lamps, because that's how many there are. How come when it comes to the menorah, in the beginning of the verse, the neiros of the menorah doesn't say when you will light the 7 lamps? And it's talking about souls, but souls also are made up of 7. And the answer to that is because the Torah wants to hint to us something very, very, very important, and something very profound. And that is as follows. When we say that the menorah is divided into 7 lamps, that's after they had a piece of gold, a chunk of gold, and then they melted the gold, put it through. Actually, in the end, no one was able to make it. Even Moshe couldn't make it. He had to throw it into the fire, and God made it happen on its own, which, by the way, is indicative, the idea that the neshama's souls are not man-made, or anybody. Souls are purely, only Hashem can produce souls. In any case, but so we have to, what we can notice over here is that we start off with one chunk of gold, which is unformed. Later in the fire, it becomes formed into the 7 different branches. What that really means is that in the history of our souls, we also exist on 2 stages, on 2 levels. Because there is stage number 1 where our souls don't have a form yet. And then all souls are one glob, so to speak, of souls. And over there isn't 7, there's just 1, just oneness. And then a second dimension of souls is where the souls emerge outward to take on certain features. And then we can differentiate 7 souls. Why is that? Because as I mentioned earlier, the reason why the souls have 7, we differentiate souls in 7, is because souls serve Hashem in 7 different ways. Since their main service to God is through 7 different channels, again, their service is characterized, their service is defined in different ways. The flavor of their service is different, 7 different types of service. Some people are always into fighting battles, spiritual, fighting battles also against themselves. They always like to overcome. Whenever there's resistance, they want to overcome. These are souls that main primary service to Hashem is netzach, through perseverance. Other ones are always submitting. They don't have to understand things that are beyond them. They're always accepting. They're very accepting. To anything that's true, they accept it immediately. Some people always like to know why, give me a reason. They're very resistant. Others are very accepting and very submissive towards holiness. These are souls of Hod, and so on and so forth. So, and because their service is that way, that's why the soul itself is called 7 lamps. Why should they be defined by their service? Since the main idea of a neshama is to serve Hashem, as it says in the Gemara, Masechtas Kedushin, the Talmud says, Ani Nevreisi, I was created to serve my Creator. Or even deeper than that, there is a different version in the Talmudic statement. This version is, I was created to serve my Creator. There is another version that says it even stronger. I wasn't created for anything else but to serve my Creator. Which means don't even think of anything else. My entire identity is only to serve my Creator. So if my service to God is my only identity, it's my only reality, it's my only beingness, So then I can be defined by my service. If I serve God with love, then I am a soul of love. If I serve God in the way of fear, then I am a soul of fear, a soul of awe, whatever. However, even though we define the souls by their service, in other words, the type of service that you will provide will actually define your existence. That's only the secondary dimension of your existence. That's your soul as the soul is operating and functioning in this world. But the quintessence of your soul I'm going to pull that back a minute. Let's save quintessence for a little later in the class. But the essence of the soul, this is more the expression of the soul, but the essence of the soul is not defined by our service. Why? Even though I just mentioned to you that it says, I was not created for anything else but my service, that means my very identity is my service to Hashem. So we have to really, Chassidus gives us an amazing insight into that. And that is, that doesn't mean that our entire existence is the service of Hashem. We exist beyond that. Because the true existence of a soul is that a soul is part of God. This that we say that we are here to serve God is only once the soul descends into being a created being. Souls don't originate as created beings. Souls originate as being one with Hashem. And in their original, and I don't know if you can say on that originate, they are just one with God. And just like God does not exist for a purpose, it's not like we needed a world, so we had to have a God so that he can create the world. God is because he is. He's absolute in his existence. His existence is not a means to an end. So too souls don't exist to a means to an end. Let it be even the highest end, which is serving God. That too is a means to an end. That means that you're here for something. The purpose of the soul is in them themselves, because just like God is, the soul is. So on the deepest level of neshamas transcend purpose. They exist with an absolute existence. And on that level, souls are just perfectly one with Hashem. And on that level, there are no 7 souls, 7 types of souls. Because since what defines a soul and makes it be a different type of a soul, belonging to the right side of the candelabra, and the other soul belonging to the left side of the candelabra, depending on which corresponding midah, which corresponding thing, that is only related to the soul as being somebody who's here to worship and to serve. So the type of service will define you. But the type of service is only after the soul enters into the created realm. That's when it's created for a purpose. I have no other business being created, being a created identity, which means having a consciousness of self. That is no other thing. So then once I have a consciousness of self, I can serve my Creator. Then the type of service defines the neshama. On that level, yeah, your definition is your category A, category B, C, D, E, F, G, whatever, seven different types of souls. But on a deeper, more inner level, where souls are not yet created, which, as we mentioned earlier, the souls on a level of atzilus. Atzilus means emanation. A soul is not yet a created entity. On that level, there is no service. It doesn't exist in a service. It is just one. It doesn't have to do anything. It is. And since on that level souls are beyond purpose, so then these defining elements don't define the neshama on that level. So there are no 7 lamps. It's only one neiros, souls. That's why when the pasuk says ba'alois chasaneiros, when you will lift the neiros, it doesn't say 7, because what he's trying to tell you, what the verse is trying to hint to and tell you, that the elevation of souls is not only on the level of the soul, where the soul already became a creation. And then, as we said earlier, souls that are created souls, sometimes when they come down in bodies, the thickness, the coarseness of the body blocks and you can say, confuses the soul or covers up on the soul's love to God. And there the neshama needs to be ignited. Ba'aloscha, you have to elevate the soul. And we said earlier that souls that are never changed, the old souls, our souls that retain that godly state, they don't need to be ignited. They're ignited automatically. So we would think that by them there is no ba'alois chasaneros, there's no elevation. So on purposely, the pasuk tells us, doesn't say 7, because if it would be talking about the lower level of souls, then it would mention 7, because then we are differentiated in 7 categories. It says ba'alois chasaneros to teach you that the service of igniting souls and thereby elevating, aloscha actually doesn't only mean light, it means to elevate. Elevating souls, the elevation is even to those souls that never become creation. Or even souls who do become creations. The elevation is not only in their stage B of their soul, on their created level, the elevation is also in their essence of their soul. Even their essence of their soul is also elevated. Even though they don't need to be ignited, they are ignited on their own, they're attached to Hashem on their own, but yet they can still be elevated. That's why it doesn't say 7. Phenomenal. But what's the elevation of a soul that is already one with God? What's its elevation? If it's already already in the state of it's beyond even being created, that means it's divine. What's the elevation of the soul? So for that he explains something really phenomenal. And he says as follows. This that souls have a love to God. This that a neshama, that a soul has a love and an excitement to God, a fire towards holiness, as we said before from the example of a lamp. The lamp is always burning upward. The definition of that love is what type of love it is. Is it? That type of love is compared to the love of a parent, of a child to a parent. Why do we love God? Because we're children of God. Souls are called banim atem Hashem Elokeichem. Neshamas are called children of Hashem. So the pull of the neshama to become one with God is the pull of a child that pulls towards his parents. And we know that the love that exists between parent and child is an inextinguishable kind of a love. It's not, meaning to say, it's not based on reason. It's not based on, children don't love their parents because their parents are the best people in the world. Whether you have the best parents or you don't have the best parents. It's a natural thing. These are my parents. And if you can, choose afterwards and say, okay, now you choose your parent, you still want your parents because they're your parents. The love of a child to a parent is just, it's an essential thing. It's not based on logic or reason. You don't have to meditate and create. You don't have to develop that love. It's instinctive. The children love the parent automatically. But yet we do find that love can sometimes be messed with. We find that sometimes that what we might think is natural and instinctive and always there can sometimes not be visible. Because a lot of times there are times, very sadly, where parent and child become estranged from each other. And the parent rejects the child rejects the parents. You'll hear sometimes people saying, I hate my parents, I hate my mother, I hate, God forbid. That is possible. It doesn't mean that the love is destroyed. It does mean that it's blocked. Certain occurrences, abuses, neglect, whatever the reason is, that can sometimes distort this, what should be natural and what should be constant could be could be ruined. And even in those cases, if the right moment arrives and the right facilitator, a person who knows how to can heal that wound or somehow, break through that, then their love will be created again, but it's not going to be a new love, it's going to be a recreation of the essential love, because the essential love is essentially always there. It's its essence. But we do find that it could be covered up. It could be blocked. Similar to that, let's go back. We say souls are all part of God. And souls are children. We're called Banim Atam Hashem Elokei. Our souls are children. And therefore our love to Hashem is instinctive. But yet we say that souls, when they come down here in a body, and we're faced with a very physical, materialistic world, sometimes we forget our spiritual yearnings. And we become obsessed with just accumulating physical wealth. And people, there are some times in our lives that we can go through periods of time when we don't feel the need to study Torah. We don't feel the need to pray and to say Tehillim or connect, to meditate and have go through dry spells. And there are people, sadly, who, whatever sad circumstances which lead to such a state. Sometimes it can be bad, hanging out with the wrong people and something like that, or just lack of education, or being programmed with ideas that are anti-spiritual and atheistic and so on and so forth, which can kind of disconnect the soul. Similar to a parent and a child who can become estranged from each other. On that we said you need to have, so a person has an encounter with a tzaddik, with a high priest, or with any priest that can wake up, can stir the soul back and bring back its love, to ignite the lamps. But then there is another dimension. There is a level of the neshama that is even deeper than what we spoke about. That's what I mentioned earlier. Earlier we spoke about the expression of the soul as it becomes a functioning entity, a conscious being. In the created realm, it becomes a creation. Then there is the soul as it is in the world of emanation, where it's like a child, and therefore naturally has love to God. And by the way, let me just add one more idea. These souls that come down, and as we said before, need outside assistance to be ignited, they're like souls who become estranged from their Father in heaven. The souls that come down and don't change, which are souls of Atzilus, the higher level of soul that doesn't change, is souls that are called children of Hashem, without outside assistance. They're naturally ablaze. Sometimes you meet a unique person that from when they're a child, they've always been seeking. They have a very strong sense of the divine. They just, even as a little child, lots of stories of tzaddikim, of great people, that when they were little children, they were like, they never left heaven. Those are souls that are children. But then there is something deeper. When we say that all souls are children of God, in what sense are we children? Just like a child is derived from the brain of the father. Because in the act of procreation, the stimulation for intimacy begins in one's mental focus. And so it's explained that the actually drawing and the actual transmission of seed to create the child, one is actually drawing from their brain. And then later, somehow through the body, whatever, it becomes a seminal drop. But in its origins, it's a neurological entity which is now being transmitted. And that's why the child has the entire parent in them, the DNA, because they're taken from the inner brain tissue of the parent, whatever substance of the brain. So the same is also with souls and God. The souls come from God's brain, as as hard as it is to understand that. But we have a brain that's just a physical copy of the higher spiritual, and ultimately we're made in the image of God. Hashem too has a brain, a mind of God, which represent the 10 sfirot and the 3 higher spheres, primarily the first one, which is called Chachma. Hashem's Chachma, and souls are derived directly from God's Chachma. And that's why souls are. But when you trace the child to the parent, there is once a child is born, then they come from they are taken from the father's brain, but right now they have left the father's brain and became a brain onto their own, an entity, a unit onto their own. Before the parent has children, or before the parent had this child, before the father fathered the child, this potential child, is now lodged and exists as an indefinable, I'm looking for another word, I'm a little tired in my mind, as an indistinguishable entity in the father's brain. Before the parent ever emanated and drew the seminal drop to create the child, when the child was still pre-created, on that level, the child is the father and the father is the child. They're of one essence. And our souls also exist. Let's first begin. Existed on that level before the souls were projected outward. On that level, the souls are not a child of Hashem. They are completely Him. Inseparable from Hashem Himself. Now, with souls, it's different than with a parent. Human parents and human children. Because when a parent creates their child, when a child is born, the child left the brain and went out to become a separate entity, to become a child. With souls, it's not that way. Because in souls, whenever there is a hamshacha, whenever something is drawn, it doesn't leave its original core. It just extends itself out. So in that sense, the soul always exists on a plane and on a level where it is Hashem, totally one with Hashem, like a child in its pre-created state, just indistinguishable from the Father. The soul also emanates outward, and that outer emanation becomes already something other than Hashem, and it becomes a child. Then that soul descends and becomes a created being. That's already a next stage, because as a child, it's not yet a created being. It's an emanation. Then it descends from the world of emanation, from being a child, to become a created being. And then it's possible, as we said before, to even forget that you're a child, and to become completely estranged, to think of yourself like a biological animal, as opposed to a piece, a sublime being, a part of God from above, or a child of God, a prince. It can be forgotten. But that doesn't mean that the soul, so what comes out now is we're going to put it this way. There are 3 levels of souls. In our existence, in our soul, 3 dimensions to our soul. There is the most external dimension of the soul is our consciousness. And that's our soul has already been dropped into creation. Then there is our souls, where our soul is considered, for most of us, our pre-conscious. We're not conscious of it as a soul being a child of God. And the soul, but it's already separated, as a child separated from the parent. Not a creation, but a child. And the deepest, highest level of the soul is where the soul and Hashem are one. Pre-even child. Father and child are one entity. By the way, in Chassidus it says the reason why we are obligated to give our lives up and to die for the sanctification for God's name is because of parent and children. Because we're children of God. The rest of the world is not expected. A Jew is expected to die for the sanctification. In certain circumstances, he has to give his life. So it says, but hold it, for a parent, you don't have to give your life. Your life comes before if someone says, I'll kill you, God forbid your parent, person is not obligated to lay his life on the line for his father should live. That's not, but with Hashem, yeah. So why? Because it says that we, like the Alter Rebbe explains, the reason is because we are deeper than children. Because a child left the father's brain and became an entity. Once you're an entity, you have to look out for yourself. But the soul never left its origins in Hashem's brain. So you're one with Him, and therefore you're inseparable. And even if it costs you your life, inseparable. A neshama cannot separate. It is Him. That's the quintessence of the soul. So there's the there is the expression of the soul, that's our consciousness. There is the essence of the soul as it is in Atzilus, the soul as it is a child, that's the essence. The quintessence is the soul as it is, still never separated from God. But that dimension is completely not revealed, obviously. As a soul living, when we are conscious in our bodies, can we ever be conscious of that level? No. So we can work on two levels when we're in our bodies. The lower level is to just first discover that we have a soul, to be more of a spiritual being. Not just, as we said before, a biological, physical creature. We have a soul, we have a spirit inside of us. I am created to serve my Creator, and therefore I want to do mitzvahs, I want to learn, but still we're living in separate consciousness. I want to get close to God. Then there can be a higher level of neshama, which is the neshama as a soul. You peel away the external level, you get to a high level, you feel like a child. And that is instinctive love. You experience instinctive love to Hashem. It's not like you're separate, you have to love God for a reason. Instinctively you're loving Hashem. Like a child runs to the Father. That's already opening yourself up to a deeper level, a level of soul consciousness as it is in Atzilus. But to feel the relationship with Hashem as if you never left and the soul is completely one, just Hashem Himself, that's not possible. But it is possible. And what is that? And here's the point. This is the main point in the Maayon. And that is as follows. We said earlier that when neshama comes down in the body, because the body is so thick, and because the body is such occupies, the body needs so much attention, and the physical needs are so demanding and so constant, and because wherever we look, all we see is physicality and the non-stop barrage of advertisement to try to catch us and ensnare us and to pull us into every type of physical sensation continuously. You got billion-dollar industries that are constantly trying to suck a person into every type of distraction possible. That's the world we live in. So we said, what happens? We can forget that we're souls. We can forget that we have a higher calling in life. And definitely we can forget that we're a child of God and we love Hashem like a child. But the block that this can only happen to the soul once the soul becomes already a child. As we said earlier, it is possible for a child and a parent to become estranged. So on the level of soul, where the soul became already a child, on that level it's possible that you'll forget that you're a child. Or that the parent, the natural attachment of parent and child will dry up. So what happens in a situation like that? How do you get a Jew who's already been dried up? How do you get a Jew who has no sense for spirituality? How is it that how do we reignite ourselves after we've become despiritualized? After we feel that we've lost it. I don't have it anymore. My earthly temptations and desires and wants have completely consumed me to the point that I don't feel it at all. So what happens now? So now it's not enough anymore to read this, to meditate and to get back to the fact that I'm a child, because that has already been destroyed. That has already been, the sensors of a child to a parent have already been desensitized. You have no other choice but to undig and unearth the deeper element of the soul, where the soul is one with God completely prior to ever being created, even as a child. Prior to the soul being emanated as a separate entity. One has to reach in and discover how we have to tap the soul on the level where the soul never left God, and on that level there is no possibility for estrangement. Even when we're in a physical body, we can be attached to that level where soul has never been separated from Hashem. It is still like a child, pre-child. The child is still in the father's mind before, and on that level, it can never be desensitized. Nothing can ever cover. Nothing can ever conceal. And that's the idea of Belz Chassidic. When we say Aaron HaKohen, the high priest, the Kohen Gadol, the tzaddik, what does he do? How does the tzaddik have the power? Hashem sends a neshama down in the world. Hashem sent millions of souls down into this world, and then we all go astray. We've all gotten verblunted. A generation gotten verblunted, has become completely materialistic. Religious and non-religious. Non-religious for sure, people that have gone, so many that have gone completely lost. Some of them still have a very strong knack for spirituality, but some people completely not. No sense, no feeling for being Jewish at all, or any relationship or any want to connect. And even those that are behaviorally religious, but so many without any feeling for it, just doing it robotically. So how is it that you have a tzaddik who is igniting souls, reconnecting them? What's the power of the tzaddik? The answer is, the tzaddik, the Kohen Gadol, he himself is on the level of soul that is not only a child, he never separated, he's one. Like the child before he was created, and therefore when you come into contact with him, he opens you up, not to your essence, but to your quintessence. To the level of soul where the soul is just one with God, and there can never be a distraction. Over there can't be a concealment. Over here, all the distractions of the world, all the coarseness of the world doesn't block. Now, what does this feel like? Does it feel like a sizzling oneness with God? No, it doesn't feel like anything. It just feels one thing, is that your Jewishness becomes so important to you. It becomes so alive in you. You become driven to learn Torah, do mitzvahs. The fact that despite the fact that our souls are of the lower stature of souls, despite the fact that we're living in Los Angeles, California, where there is such materialism, or wherever place in the world you live in, and so many of these places are so materialistic, so earthy, so distracting. And yet, you're in the battle, and yet you're still in it, and yet you're still fighting, and yet every day you're looking, you want to connect, you want to listen to a shir, you want to daven, you want to learn, you want to go to a minyan, you want to, the fire is burning. Why is that? The underlying reason for that is because dafka, and precisely in our bodies, precisely down here below, and in our struggles, and through the help of those who will kindle the lamps, those tzaddikim, those great people who are able to kindle the lamps, precisely down here is when we uncover a deeper dimension of our soul than our soul experienced in heaven, and even in the pre-heaven where the soul was in Atzilus, even deeper than that, because the soul dafka, meaning precisely down here, is where it taps, it uncovers, it unearths that its relationship with God is not like a child. It's just like a child pre-born, where the child and father are completely one. And that's what we mean, that the souls have an elevation even when they are Neros, even when they're not 7 Neros. 7 Neros is when we come down in the lower realms, in the created realm. In the world of Atzilus, when we're considered children to God, we're not 7. We're all 1. But the point over here is that even on the level of Neros, even on the level where souls are not yet creations, souls are children of God, even on that level they have an elevation. Because to be elevated from being a child to being just 1 is the highest of elevation possible. And that's the elevation that comes about through Balos Chasaneros. When we are elevated, and we have to realize the reality of this. We're not talking about some mystical, distant idea. We're talking about the reality of our lives. Because when we're still after thousands of years in exile, after such hardship and such all the chemicals, if we can say, that were thrown at us to extinguish our fire and our connection to God, and yet we're still at it. We've gone through everything, and yet we're still at it. This is all an indication that the deepest, highest element of soul has been tapped, has been revealed. And that's the highest Ba'alois Chasaneros. When we uncover such a connection, while we're regular human beings that you see on the street, say hello, hi, all of our ordinary people, we're so Jewish, we're so holy, we're so godly. And I'm going to see this again. You can hear sometimes on the internet people that berate, speak about how lowly the generation is and how God is angry at us and punishing at us. Discard all of that. It's not true. Jews are the Jewishness of the Jewish people today is so deep, it is so high, it is so pristine, it is so unbelievable. As a result of us uncovering our quintessence, which is one with the essence of God while we're in bodies, we bring that revelation of the essence of God down into creation as well, into the 7 luminaries. And that brings Hashem so much more present and revealed in the world. And that brings about the ultimate Yo'iru Shiva Saneres, that the 7 lamps of creation have a deeper, higher brightness. It's the brightness related to the essence of Hashem when the world will be a home for God. A home means a place where He is fully manifest, His very essence. And it all begins in souls. When we uncover our essential dimension, by what? By turning on our fire, despite the fact that we shouldn't be inspired. By the fact that even though technically, because of the circumstances of our lives and our situation, we should be completely extinguished. The fact that we still have a drive in our Judaism, our drive in our spiritual lives, is because if it would only be children, we wouldn't be doing this. Children, we would have forgotten our childhood relationship a long time ago. The estrangement, we would have come to a state of complete estrangement. The fact that we're not estranged is because it's deeper than even being children, and that's our essence. Where our essence is the essence of one. And if that's revealed in you, that means that the essence of God is revealed in your body. And if He's revealed in your body, that's causing Him to be revealed in the cosmos. And that's the ultimate healing. So Be'ezras Hashem, we will have a very bright world revealed before us. Momentarily we will see it, and it will be unbelievable. We should see it now.